All right, everybody. Basketball is back, and we have not given you our thoughts yet. So we've got plenty of those stored and in the chamber, ready to come at you hot. Straight off the presses, we got the NBA GM survey. So we're going to take a look at that, give you kind of some insight, just what we think that, see if it does it mean anything? What do you think it means? Mean something? Mean nothing? I don't know. We'll take a look around at that. And then at the end of the show, we'll hit you with a little bit of Jaylen Brown, the celebrity, making the media stops here. So we'll give you some thoughts about his appearance on Hot Ones as well as gracing the cover of Time magazine. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. So we'll get into that and more coming up here. Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up? What up? What up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, one and only Greg Menakis. Greg, good to see you, man. I actually haven't seen you in probably about we haven't recorded. I think in a week we did some pre-recordings before I left to go out of town for a wedding. So I haven't actually seen you in about a week. Legitimately, not just saying this for purposes of the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. How was the trip to El Paso?
So it was a good trip. I wasn't necessarily sick. I think it was a little bit of a
Yeah, I
like
hear
El
a
Paso,
little nasal
little
sound
bit,
there.
yeah. Like it's funny. Me and Lorena, my wife, for the listeners, we went out there for her cousin's wedding, and El Paso is like desert mountain, like that's kind of the climate out there. So
Did
it's
you
still
fly
pretty
or
hot.
drive?
What's that? No, we flew.
Did,
We flew for this one.
okay,
And I have something to bring up about flying here in just a second.
okay.
And so the climate out there, it's like mountain desert kind of combo. So it's definitely way drier there than it is here. And so I think it was a combo of like the elements. So I had to, by the night before the wedding, we were at like a really nice sushi dinner with her cousins and stuff, like our closest family on her side. And like halfway through dinner, I could just, how you get that like little tingle in your throat. You're like, fuck, I think I'm getting a little sick, or I think I feel
Yeah,
a little something coming on. Like
yeah.
halfway through dinner, they didn't have anything all day. Like great sushi, having some wine, and like halfway through dinner, I'm like, fuck, I feel it. Don't think about it. Maybe if you just don't think about it, it's not going to happen. And the next day I woke up and I was like, oh, my throat just feels like phlegmy. I feel like kind of gross, but I was like, it was the day of the wedding. So I was just like, all right, gotta do what I can here, try to power through, drink some liquids, just like getting some cough drops. And I was feeling okay. And then probably about like during the ceremony, they were giving out these little like coronitas to like drink. And like, so I had like a beer or two, and like halfway through like that second beer, it's a coronita. So it's really like two of those is like one full beer, basically.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to be a tough one. I could tell that it
Really?
was not going to be my A game. It wasn't necessarily a Jordan flu game, because like I didn't have a lot of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just had to like not be the person to be like, oh, I feel sick, I can't do anything. So I was like, all right, just got to power through. So
And you're a good
hammer
time at
down.
the wedding, man.
Yeah, I mean, it still had a great time. I mean, I powered down some. They had some mezcal drinks that were really nice. I think that was the way to go, just kind of numb everything basically with mezcal. And yeah, but ended up being a great time. Like I powered through, and like I said, we got back to Austin, and even Lorena was feeling a little bit sick the next day, like not from drinking, just like same symptoms. Where it was like, I don't know, I feel off. We got back to Austin Monday night, and we were like, yeah, I feel a lot better all of a sudden. So like you can still hear it a little bit, but like
Yeah.
but getting
Quick.
getting back there, man.
I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. Quick tangent / question back to the
Yeah.
wedding here. So
Mhm.
for those of you that don't know Will on a personal level, Will can be the life of the party. Like if there's a dance circle, Will's definitely getting in that dance circle. Big time. You're just like a fun guy to be with at a party. So
Weddings are
were
a
you
great time. All these people that don't like going to weddings, you're going to the wrong weddings. Like, I'm sorry, they're fun. Like, I don't understand you people.
Did you end up in a dance circle? That's my question.
Yes and no. I mean, it was so like it was a longer wedding. So this was one of the first like true Mexican weddings that I went to. Like it was a
Mm,
long affair. Like we were there
yeah.
at 5. We left at, I think, maybe a little after midnight, and it went until like 2 a.m. So like it was a long affair. They had like a DJ that they brought in, her cousin from Monterrey, and like he's like kind of, it was a little bit more of like it like it was some like some EDM remix, a little bit of it, but there was of course a lot of like traditional like songs. So
Yeah.
it was more like everyone was kind of like in like the dance floor was so packed there wasn't even really a circle other than like when the bride and groom got in the mix and like
Gotcha.
I'm like I said, I'm a fringe family. I'm a new family member, right? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to take that over, you know. So
Right.
like on
Right.
the outskirts, we were having a good time, and like me and like her cousins that I'm pretty close with now. Like I wouldn't say I got in the middle, but we were we were in the mix. But I wasn't trying, especially where I was. Number one, I wasn't feeling 100%, so I was just trying to do my part, which I know is like, all right, let's show the family that we're out here, right? We're here
Yep.
supporting, we're out in the dance floor, we're not like in the corner sulking or anything. But it definitely wasn't from what you'd be used to at some of our friends' weddings, like where I'm like, yo, let's get this shit going. Like
Mhm.
not quite to that level, but definitely still out there and in the mix. That's why I said like it's not really like a Jordan. Like if I was sick for like if I felt this way at your wedding, I'd have to
Mhm.
put on some Jordan flu type shit where I'm like, yo,
Gotcha.
no
Gotcha.
one's gonna know. And then the next day I'm gonna be like, dude, I am fucking dead. Right.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have to be my Scottie Pippen and I'm gonna be leaning on you like, the next day at whatever event we have. But yeah. So not quite to that same extent. But real quick, because I know we're going a little bit long on this, but I did have something I want to bring up because I need the help of our guy TSA John.
Oh,
I need.
TSA John, I hope you're listening, man.
I think I know he still listens. He DM'd me the other day, so I know he still listens. And I was going to ask him, but he's like, you know what? I want to ask this on the pod because I've got an issue with TSA, Greg. I think I'm flagged. I've taken. So listen to this. So I have taken since I think it's like early June. I've been on 8 flights, all round trip flights. Mostly it was from Austin to Boston for a couple different events over the summer, and then this last one from Austin to El Paso. So that's
Yeah.
8 times that I've gone through security. What do you think would be a lot of times to be quote unquote randomly selected when going through
A lot.
TSA?
I would
Yeah,
say
what do you think would be a
3.
lot?
3.
Yeah, I'm at 6. 6 out of
Yeah.
8. 6 out
Yeah.
of 8 trips. It's gotten insane, and, like, Lorena didn't really believe me because the first 4 trips, I got flagged 3 times, like, "Alright, something's happening here," and then she's been with me the last 4 times, and it's 3 out of 4, and one of the times I didn't was in El Paso, and El Paso was I don't know, like, I didn't expect to get it flagged there, so I almost don't even count this. It's really, like, 6 out of 7. Like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I got a little lippy here in Austin on my way out. They didn't like that.
Really?
I was kinda well, I was just like, "Alright, guys, like, what's going on? Can you guys let me know? Like, this is the 6th straight time I've been flagged. Is there something going on?" And then they were just like, "No, it's just random." I was like, "Yeah, but I mean, random. Like, it can't be random when you're 6 times in a row." And this woman was like, "Sir, 6% of all passengers get flagged. They don't know anything about you." I'm like, They have to know something. I've been flagged 6 straight times." And she's like, "Sir, that is not the case. I don't know what you may think, but," and she was like getting in my face, and I was like, all right, this isn't worth it right now because it's a pretty minor inconvenience. Like I have
Yeah.
TSA pre-check. I don't take off my shoes. Like all they do is send me from the so with TSA pre-check, you just go through like the regular like security metal detectors instead of like the ones where you put your hand up and they like
Yeah. Yeah.
scan around. So they just send me to that. So it's really not that big of a deal. I just was
You just feel
personally
like you're being
annoyed.
stereotyped.
100%. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's happened too many times to be coincidence. So TSA John, I need you to look into this, my guy. Will Weir, find out what I'm flagged. Hit me up if you need more info. I got to figure out what's going on because 6 out of 8 is far more than just a random 6% of all travelers. Like this might be my lottery ticket, and I fucking lost it getting searched by TSA.
That's tough, man. Yeah, I think I've only been searched, well, it's funny. Whenever I would go home, my mom would always send me back with this, like, very specific packaged Chinese sausage that I like. So I would, like, end up cooking that in, like, some rice. It's like a red sausage.
Yeah,
It's like the
I think
sausage
I've
that's
had it
in, like,
before.
sticky
Yeah,
rice or anything, something like that, right?
yeah.
I think it's called like Feng Chin or something. But every time I bring that in my backpack, for some reason, like the metal detectors, they don't like it. So like the scan doesn't like it when they send it through the
Hmm.
through the luggage, whatever conveyor belt.
Yeah. I got you. The
And
luggage is
every
pulled to the
single
side.
time I
Yeah.
have that in there, they're like, can you tell us what's in your bag? And I'm like, listen, guys, I'm at the point now where I'm like, listen, there's some Chinese sausage in there, and that's the reason why you're gonna flag this bag. I just want to let you know it's just a package of sausage. And they look at me like, is this guy being for real? Like, why why are you bringing through sausage every time? If you know
First of all,
that
it
it's
almost
going to
sounds
get
like a
flagged.
code word because you're saying Chinese sausage. So it's
I
like
know.
you had like a code word for like, I don't know, you're like a CIA guy with like a knife or something. You're like, it's a Chinese sausage.
Yeah, it's a Chinese
Oh,
sausage.
gotcha. He said the magic word because it's so random. It's
Yeah.
like it's got to be a code for something that's actually
Oh yeah,
that's
he's
not
he's the
just literally
marshal on the
Chinese
plane,
sausage.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That sucks though, man. I'm
That's
sorry that
funny,
happened to
man.
you.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. But it's like the minor inconvenience, but it is frustrating. So TSA, John, if you're listening, man, let me know. Let me know what you can find out. If you can share anything, definitely would be appreciated. But while I was over there, Greg, I did get a chance to celebrate basketball is back, sort of. So preseason basketball has arrived. Celtics out in Abu Dhabi last week because I was away, as we've just discussed. We didn't get a chance to give our thoughts on everything that happened out in Abu Dhabi. So Celtics, Nuggets, we gave you that preview with our guy Swipe a Cam. Really fun interview. Really enjoyed his perspective on the Nuggets. And honestly, it's made me kind of rethink a little bit about how I feel about the Nuggets going into the season after that. Not that I had a super low opinion of them, but just that I'm not sure. I'm not ready to give my finals prediction yet. Spoiler alert, Celtics will be in there from the East is my prediction, but I'm not sure who I'm going to go with from the West yet, but the Nuggets are certainly right there in that consideration. But Celtics Nuggets out in Abu Dhabi, played 2 preseason games. Mostly really the first half of each game was kind of like a real game. Second half turns into a lot of the bench play, but Celtics leave out of there with 2 wins. Greg, I got to watch the entirety of the first game. The second game, it was an 8 a.m. Mountain Time start, night after a wedding. Didn't catch as much of that game, a lot of highlights mostly. So let me start with you here, and you can kind of take this in whatever way you want to. I know there's probably one big thing that's jumping out to both you and I, but go ahead. This is our first real basketball thoughts of the season. What do you got for me?
Okay, I think for all the listeners, you probably think I'm going to start talking about Jaylen Brown. And you're absolutely right. Jaylen Brown looks amazing. He had a couple plays early in the first game where, the turnover bug was back, but that's normal for everybody playing basketball at this point in the season. But just like in general, there's an air about Jaylen Brown, and we're going to talk about him later on. Obviously, Jaylen, the celebrity, making his appearance on Hot Ones and on Time Magazine, but he really looks like he's owning the fact that he's coming into his prime as a player, coming off the amazing Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the Finals MVP. He just looks like he feels like he belongs. The most interesting part to me was the way he went at Jamal Murray, because I think a lot of people would probably still keep them in the same realm of conversation, although Jaylen, I think, has kind of surpassed Jamal, both
I think
kind of
he's
in the
gotten the
same
same
boat.
bump. He's gotten the same bump that Jamal Murray got when they won the championship.
Exactly.
And we were coming on here going, they excuse me, they have to be the best duo in the league, right? Like
Right.
Jamal Murray's a top 15 guy. That's the bump Jaylen Brown has going for him right now into the season.
Exactly. And he really went at Jamal in the post. He gave him the too small a couple times. There's this after he did the too small on him, they gave it to him on the right block, and then he just went to work, or maybe it was left block. Can't remember what side of court it was. But then the very next possession, Jaylen got down the court early in transition, bodied him under the rim. They threw it right back to Jaylen on the block, and then he hit Luke Cornett on a cut. And a really nice no-look pass, and Luke dunked it. So that was the first thing that stood out to me. Second thing that stood out to me was Luke. Luke Cornett, I thought, looked great in the starting center position. Al Horford didn't play, for those of you that were unable to watch the games. So I think a lot of people were interested to see who would function as the starting center. Would it be Tillman? Would it be Cornett? Would it be Keita? And Cornett just looks like he's going to fit in seamlessly with the starting group. They were really running a lot of delay action, so they had the 5 out with Cornett right at the top of the key, and they would just throw the ball to him
Had a
and
few
cut
plays
off
out of the
him.
short roll too in these games, which was
Yeah,
nice.
I thought Luke looked great. He was a valve for the offense with dribble handoffs at the elbow and screens and curl actions, pin downs. I thought Luke played really, really well. So I was thinking about the heir apparent to Al Horford. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Tillman? I hadn't really considered Luke Cornett as like the center of the future,
I feel
but
like we've done this for like 2 years where we're just like, yeah, we need a backup 5. Luke's just been around now for what? I think this is 4th year kind of around the team. I believe it is. And it's just like it's for whatever reason, it's hard to just latch in. Like Luke is our backup slash emergency starter. Like that's just
Yeah.
who he is. And that's just
He's
I
pretty
think
good.
that's just he's pretty good, right? Like the development of Luke Cornett, like he's a real NBA player. Like he's not just a gimmicky, goofy white guy that clearly Boston fans are going to love. Like he's a real guy. Like he's a
He has those
real
moments,
player
like, I
out
don't know if
there.
you saw in the second game, Will, he had, like, a transition opportunity where he took it down the left side of the court and tried to dunk in transition, and he just caught a flat tire and missed the dunk completely.
Which is even funnier when you're 7'2". Like that's just like he can probably dunk without jumping. And so catching a flat tire when you're 7'2" is hilarious. I did not see that. So that is funny. But yeah, no, Luke was good in these games, man. And to be fair, you're saying you're kind of evaluating the big man spot. And I didn't watch as much of the second game. But I thought Tillman looked more comfortable as well too. I
Mhm.
liked like in nothing to jump off the page at you. One thing I do really love with Tillman is that he is an absolute screen machine on
Mhm.
offense. I just feel like it's let me set a screen, didn't work. Let me reset a screen. Let me run over here and set a screen. And ultimately what it's going to be is at some point off of 4 or 5 screens that he's setting on one possession, there's going to be a decent amount of them where he's going to end up just trying to kind of roll out of the play and end up with an open three. And it's going to end up being, can he make a decent amount of those, right?
He
That's going to
did hit a
be
top of the key 3 in the second game.
right. And so that's going to be the one big thing is if he's taking three threes a game and if he's playing 20 minutes, can he hit one can he go 33%, right? Can he go 33, 34, 35% on those wide open threes? Because I think he's one of the best screeners on the team. I don't know, maybe he's the best screener. I'm not sure because of his body type, right? Like it does open up a lot of space, and because he's so willing to just continually do it and that be his role in the offense. And I think he has a pretty high IQ. Like I'm sorry, I feel really good about the Cornett Tillman combo. Just like I mean, over this brief sample size, but over what we've seen from them in the last couple of years, like listen, Al, take as many games off as you want. Like we're gonna be okay with Cornett and Tillman and everything else that we've seen. And something else that we haven't touched on. You touched on how Jaylen Brown look, him becoming his mo. Just you can put a small guy on him, he's just taking him in the post. He's just gonna bully him,
Mhm.
and I love it. It's gonna be every single time you want to play anybody, whether it's Jamal Murray, the Tyler Heroes, Darius Garlands. If they're out there, Jaylen Brown's hunting them to go bully ball on him. But something we've been worried about, me specifically, Jason Tatum shooting threes, goes 6 of 14 in these 2 games. Little relief, Greg. Little relief. I told you before, like it was, we talked about this with Corrales as well a couple episodes ago. It's about a 4 out of 10. Need to see a few go in. I'm curious to know your thoughts. We talked a little bit about some, practice footage we were getting of that shot being a little bit different. How'd you feel the shot looked in those games, aside from just obviously you went 6 of 14, which we'll take every day?
I thought it looked smooth, and most importantly, I thought he looked confident taking it. I think that was one of the issues at the end of last season into the Olympics is I don't know that he had a hitch specifically, or if it was just like there was an issue with confidence, like a hesitation in the shot, which maybe manifested itself as like a physical hitch. And he didn't look like he was lacking any sort of confidence in that jumper. He was shooting it off the catch quickly. He was shooting it off the dribble quickly. And it looked like he was hunting his 3-point shot. And that's what the preseason is for, right? To make sure that you're ironing out all the kinks in your game. And I thought he looked great, man. That's exactly what we needed to see out of Jason Tatum. And last year, even like the pet shots that he has, like the little fadeaways in the mid post, they seemed like he was leaving those short a lot. And he had a
Mm-hmm.
couple, he had one stretch where he had back-to-back fadeaways off the mid post that I was really happy to see, because it's not just the 3-point shot, it's the mid-range and then the free throw. I was also happy to see that he got rid of that little like hesitation where he would reset the ball. Seems like he got rid of that. So whatever was in his head about his shot seems to be gone. And I'm just happy to see him playing with confidence again.
Yeah, I love what you said about that mid-range post-up kind of fadeaway shot because he's so long and can create separation. That's such a nasty shot for him, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like
No
like
one
how do
can
you
contest
defend
it.
that shot? There's gonna be Wemby and I don't know, maybe there's like 2 other maybe like there's a very small percentage of people in the NBA that can do anything with that shot. So that shot is going to be there for him. And so when he does, and I can picture in that first game, it's kind of like in the left mid post. I remember him taking. I'm like, yes. I think he missed it, but I was like, yes, that is the shot. Like that right there. I want more of that because nobody's going to be able to defend that. And I think, especially, I mean, this was like in the first or second quarter, the shot I'm thinking of, and these guys didn't play late in the game, but that's a shot late game that I think actually Tatum might need to
Oh
go
yeah,
to a little bit more. Like
Dirk,
that's just it's
the Dirk
yeah,
fadeaway.
yeah, exactly. Like I
Mhm.
feel like that should be in his repertoire. All right, looking around just elsewhere here quickly. Preseason P, right back at it again. You know how our
Looks
man
great.
does. He's always ready for the preseason. Um, last thing, I guess, on these, Greg, anyone that like from the lower end of the Celtics roster that stood out to you that you think, we've been talking about, didn't seem like Lonnie Walker really, like if we're just looking at these
Didn't get a
2 game
chance.
sample
Yeah.
size, doesn't feel like he's making this roster. We tried to make it into a couple content segments of content, which by the way, that was another thought I had was I'm a little worried from a content perspective. This might be a little bit of a boring season for us, Greg, because this team brought everybody back. Everybody's super comfortable. It's going to be obviously we'll be able to talk about what's happening on the court, but this team just came back looking in these first 2 games like cool. Ball movement's great, defense intensity a little bit lower, going to pick it up. We'll see it, when we get to games that matter. But I think it's going to be hard to really have a lot of conflict, which conflict is what's going to drive a lot of good content. Like feel
Mhm.
this way about that way about this. I don't know. This team's going to be really tough to find. I think good content for us in the season. I'm a little bit worried about that, but that's a
I have
problem.
no concerns.
I think
I have no
a lot of
concerns
fans
with
might want to hit me in the face right now for saying that, but that's our own podcast problem to deal with. But
I see.
once
You know
again,
what?
and
You know what's interesting? I don't look at it that way. I look at it as we're gonna have one fun season where we're just gonna be talking about improvements the whole time because like the conflict. I don't want to get into the like how media works and all that, but
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you asked me was there anybody else that I thought stood out? I thought Sam Hauser looked really good. So Sam
Yep,
Hauser, I don't
like
know
that.
if you said you didn't really watch the second game as much,
No,
but he
I know. I
had
saw he shot the ball really well in that game. Didn't shoot the ball well in the first game, but yeah, I didn't really get a chance to see a ton of Sam in that second
right.
game.
So Sam, the thing that stood out to me is, I talked about Jason Tatum ironing out the kinks in his game and working to get back the confidence that he was lacking at the end of last season. Sam looked like he was focused on his off the rip attacking closeouts. He dribbled into the paint multiple times. He had a hezzy pull on the left side of the court. He had one where he drove off the right slot and ended up with a little mid-range shot. He had a layup off of a rip through. And I think Sam, we talked about this in the off season. What is the improvement that each person on the team can make internally? Because that's where the development's going to come with this team as the ceiling continues to raise. And with Sam, it's just his ability to be, an effective screener in the stack pick and roll, and also just his ability to drive closeouts where he can end up like developing a little bit more Duncan Robinson off the closeout. The high end of that would be a little bit more Desmond Bain off of, running off of screens and things like that. And I think Sam Hauser's obviously going to lack the athleticism of a Desmond Bain, but he has such a high IQ and he doesn't need to go up against a team's number one defender, right? He's going to be going up against a rotating defense and one of the worst defenders on the court, mostly at all times. So I think Sam Hauser has a lot of room for growth. And I was very encouraged what I saw out of him because with the second unit, they're going to need Sam Hauser to step up a little bit more because we were
Mhm.
looking at Lonnie Walker as like maybe an extra scoring punch, but first 2 games, maybe they're just trying things out with Jaden Springer and they want to give him a chance. They want to give Jordan Walsh a chance because they were on the team last year. Maybe Lonnie Walker is going to get his opportunity in the next couple of games here in the preseason. But Sam Hauser, if he can unlock 3 to 5 more points per game in the second unit, I think that's going to go a long way for this team.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And like as you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, maybe just Sam Hauser is the Lonnie Walker spot. We were like, we need a little bit more offensive punch. Like maybe that is just coming directly from Sam and Peyton. And on the Jordan Walsh front, like I said, I only really caught a little bit of the second game and the first game. Jordan Walsh defensively, like I mean, you've been saying, the comparisons of not obviously directly to Andre Iguodala, but like that style. Like I think defensively he would fit in very well with this team. It's just a real question of offensively what is going to be his role if he
He's
is
so
out there.
smart, though. He's a really smart player.
Yeah, he isn't. He's not the guy that's out there like, I gotta prove myself offensively, and you're like, ooh, I know why you're making these bad decisions. Like he's not doing that. I feel like you see that with a lot of young players because they're in this prove it mode, right? Like I gotta prove that I belong here. He doesn't do it. He's very happy to be the guy that moves the ball along and will take the open shot if he's open, if it's in rhythm. Like to your point, he's very patient in that way. So I am interested to see if he gets a little bit more looks here. As coming up, the Celtics are obviously flying back from Abu Dhabi, so nothing during the week. This weekend, they have the rare preseason back-to-back, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday against the Sixers, Sunday against the Raptors. Saturday, if we can get if the Sixers run their full squad out there, even if it's for a half, that's a really fun game. So definitely excited to tune into that one. We'll have some thoughts for you guys over the weekend after those games take place. But I want to move us along here to the other bit of
Can I
news.
pause you real quick, Will?
Yeah, go for it. What you got?
Okay, because I didn't get to get my thoughts on Jordan Walsh. So with Jordan Walsh, there's one play that really stood out to me that I think speaks to the level of IQ that Jordan Walsh has on the court. I'm uploading it right now, so I'm going to kind of filibuster here until it's uploaded. Now it's uploaded. So one of the things that has always frustrated the two of us is when people don't recognize the hot hand, specifically when Sam Hauser is hot on the court, right? Where it's like there's so many opportunities where you can just find Sam in transition. Think about, this is a play that I'm going to show. Think back to the Big Three era with Rajon Rondo. How many times did Rajon Rondo push the ball up the court in transition to then turn his back to the basket and kick the ball out to a trailing three-point shooter, right? Most specifically,
usually Ray Allen.
Yeah, it was always Ray Allen, right? And he would just be looking for that opportunity to get Ray a transition three. And Jordan Walsh actually did this for Sam Hauser in the game. So I'm going to pull up this clip right here.
Here comes Zeke Naji, fifth-year pro out of Arizona. Tried to do it himself, and Walsh says, I'll take that. 4 on 3. Find the hot hand. It's Hauser. Good.
That's a great decision by Jordan Walsh.
Shout out to our guy, Drew Carter. I think there you see the IQ, right? IQ doesn't need to be these like super high level plays. A lot of times IQ is just making the simple play, and he gets the steal. Sam Hauser, you can't go at Sam Hauser in the post, guys. Come on. So Sam and Jordan Walsh get the steal. Jordan Walsh pushes the ball up the court. For those of you that are listening and were unable to watch that, pushes the ball up the left side of the court. Recognize Sam Hauser is behind him. So Walsh pushes the ball, draws the defense, and then just turns around very Rondo-esque, kicks the ball to Sam wide open for a three. Those are the plays that I think speak to what Jordan Walsh could unlock for this team. Is just another connector on the court, another Derek White type of IQ on the court. Obviously, he's 20 years old, so he has a lot more polish that needs to happen to his game. But I'm really excited what I saw out of Jordan Walsh, even if it doesn't manifest in a lot of meaningful minutes this year, just in terms of a project and someone that we can kind of monitor throughout the year. I'm really excited for Jordan Walsh.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we said before, going into the season, this is one of the things for Joe Mazzulla. Like, is he going to embrace developing Jordan Walsh in real time? Right. That's going to be one of the plot lines of the season. So we'll see. Interesting start for Jordan Walsh, and I do want to see more of that. We have a couple more preseason games coming up here, so we'll get some more in-depth looks at Jordan Walsh and have some more thoughts for you here after the weekend. Like I mentioned, Philly on Saturday, Toronto on Sunday. Weird back-to-back for the preseason. As is part of preseason tradition, the NBA GM survey came out the other day, and it was loaded with little Celtics nuggets here and there. So want to just kind of walk through a couple of these with you here, Greg, and just kind of give our thoughts on them. So if you're watching us here on YouTube, we're going to share our screen here so you can see exactly what we're talking about. But NBA GM survey, I think it's always just cool to kind of look at and see what the GMs of the league are thinking about what's actually happening in real time with the league. Now, one of the things I always think back to was this must have been 7-8 years ago, and it's somewhat relevant now because it sticks out to me as one of the reasons.
You're going to talk about Towns?
100%. Because it's the NBA GMs, they get it wrong too. And one of the questions in here that we'll get to is basically, who would you start your franchise with today? I believe Wemby's going to be the answer for this one, which it should be. But 7-8 years ago, so this is Cat's second or third year in the league, Cat was the answer. Now, if we're thinking 7-8 years ago, here's something to remember, folks. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, they're all still in their primes at this time. Right now, I understand they're getting a little bit older, and it's probably that year right before, Giannis and Jokic and Embiid really become who they become in this next 7 years. But that's where the heads of the NBA GMs were at 7 years ago. That cat is I mean, even Anthony
It
Davis
was
would have
like
been a
Cat
better
and
answer
Anthony
to
Davis.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and especially where Cat is now, it's interesting to look back and see what GMs thought then and how that aged. So, I think it's fun to look at year over year, and they always include kind of the last year section in here. So, let's have some fun. Let's take a look at what they had to say in this year's 24-25 NBA GM survey. One of the first questions always, which team will win the 2025 NBA Finals? Greg, it was a resounding Celtics, running it back at 83%. For reference, last year, Celtics and Nuggets tied on this answer at 33% of the vote. So not a lot of faith in the Nuggets, as we were talking about with our guy Swiper Cam over the last episode. Right now it's Celtics at 83%, Thunder at 13%, and then the Mavericks, who I think are just getting overrated at this point, coming in third at 3%.
Well, with the Mavs, I don't know, man, because a couple of their improvements last year were trade deadline acquisitions, and we know that it's really hard to implement somebody into your rotation midway through the year. Obviously, it worked out for them; they played their roles great. I'm talking about PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, but now they have a whole training camp with them. They also have Klay Thompson coming into the fold, so I do think that there's a good, and Derek Lively obviously could take another leap.
Year.
So I do think they also got one more addition. Who'd they get?
Najee
Grimes,
Marshall?
right? They got Grimes.
Najee Marshall.
Yeah,
Those
so
are the-
I really like Najee Marshall. Like, if you think about Derek Jones Jr. in their rotation last year, could not guard Jason Tatum, could not guard Jaylen Brown. He just wasn't that type of defender. Najee Marshall is a beast on defense, man. He's someone I really, really like on the defensive end. And then Grimes, I think, has been slept on. Since his time in New York. I really like Quentin Grimes as well. And he's got Klay Thompson now. Klay Thompson is right there with him to teach him how to be the next Klay Thompson. So I think the Dallas Mavericks, obviously with Luka coming into camp, it looking seemingly like he lost 20 pounds. Maybe it's just a haircut and a beard, but Luka looks great.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sold as high on the Mavericks. I think they're going to be good, but I think they're closer to that 5th through 11th seed in the West that is going to be chaos, and who knows, they're all going to finish a game or two apart, than they are guaranteed to be top 3-4 in the West. That's my opinion, but we'll see here. We'll see how that plays out. But in the survey, Celtics overwhelming favorites here heading into the season. Out West, Oklahoma City right now, the favorite, with Minnesota, Denver, and Dallas all pretty tightly behind them. That's kind of the group of 4 that I think everyone's really been looking at here heading into the season. Then we start getting into some of the player surveys here, Greg, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. We start to get some more Celtics takes in here, of course, with Jason Tatum. We're always curious about the MVP. Going into the season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looks like the favorite from the GMs here at 40%, followed by Luka, and then a 3-way tie, which includes our guy Jason Tatum, along with Nikola Jokic, the 3-time winner, and Joel Embiid, the 1-time winner. But I also did want to point out, also receiving votes in this category to not make the top 3, Jaylen Brown. So we talked about a little bit of the Jaylen Brown bump. Jaylen Brown even being considered in, even if he's not making the top 3, him getting a vote, 2 votes, couple votes, whatever it would be for these, honorable mentions here. That is a representation of where Jaylen Brown is getting a bump up to. And he's in that same category with Giannis and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. I mean, I could wax poetic about Jaylen Brown, but we still have a segment about him. I think the Shai at 40% is a little interesting to me, just because, they got some great additions this offseason in Caruso and Hartenstein that are perfect complementary players. Jalen Williams is looking like a future star. So is Chet Holmgren. Lou Dort is a perfect complementary player. They've got some good guys like Wiggins on their bench. So like you think about like super teams or whatnot, like Shai has a really great supporting cast around him. So like, is he going to get docked at all in the eyes of the voters?
Here's the thing.
I think he still has to glow up.
Well, because that's the Tatum thing, right? Tatum has too good of a supporting cast,
Right.
and it's it's there's more name recognition on the Celtics supporting
Yeah,
cast
that's true.
than I think there is for the Thunder, which I think is the biggest difference. And even with Chet and Jalen Williams, who are going to have a lot of name recognition, they're not quite there yet,
Yeah.
right? Because they're
Yeah.
still so young and developing. So I think that's where he's going to get that bump, especially if OKC ends up with the 1 seed. They, end up 5 games above. Like, he's still carrying a lot more than what Tatum has to do. And that might change a little bit. Like I said, if Chet and Jalen explode and continue their progression, maybe Shea doesn't average 30, 31 again. Maybe he has the Tatum regression of he goes down to 28, but his team goes up 5 wins,
Right.
So
Did
there's a possibility.
Quick question on Chet. Did you see the video circulating of him shooting 3-pointers?
I did not. Did it look good? Did it look
It
concerning?
looked bad. It looked really bad.
Really?
Yeah, it was strange. It looked like he completely changed his form in like a really bad way. I'll see if I can find the video and send it to you. But
Okay.
I think that's one of
it's
the things.
never a good thing when a guy who's been complimented on his shooting changes it dramatically and it doesn't look good. I feel like
It was
that's
very
not
slow, very deliberate. It looked like it took a full like second and a half for him. It was almost like Kyle Anderson-esque.
Oh, that's a bad comparison.
Yeah,
That
it didn't
is
look
not the jump shot you want to be compared to.
Didn't look good.
Oh man, that's never good to hear for Chet. But yeah, as we continue going down here, here's the question I referenced about Karl-Anthony Towns all those years ago. If you were starting a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be? 77%. Victor Wembanyama. Greg, there's no other answer to that question, right? It's got to be Wemby.
Yeah, I mean, with the Towns answer with the Towns answer from 7 years ago, that just like didn't really make any sense whatsoever. But yeah, Wemby's the man.
Yeah, it's got to be Wemby, and yeah, we got to make it we're not going to be able to go to the Celtics Spurs game because it's going to literally fall on my wedding night. Shout out to you guys, Celtics. If you just want to come to the wedding, let me know. We'll make it happen. But we got to find a way to make it down to some San Antonio. We got to watch Wemby in person some more this upcoming season. All right, so further down here in the players poll, they start to do by position. And once again, position is very ambiguous. They don't define it. They kind of just let the GMs do it themselves. So one thing you'll notice is that Luka Doncic is voted for in 3 different categories. He ended up in the top 5. So let's just go position by position here. So point guard, Luka, this is the category that he won despite being named in 3 different ones. Luka named the best point guard in the NBA at 37%, just ahead of SGA, Steph Curry, and Jalen Brunson coming in 4th there. Shooting guard, this is where some notable Celtic names are mentioned here. Anthony Edwards, 33%. Hot name of the summer. I feel like everyone's going to be on that Anthony Edwards train. Is going to be up there for, even though he wasn't mentioned in this as far as an MVP favorite, or he was in the honorable mention section, I feel like he's going to get talked about constantly on segments about being in that MVP race. He was named the best shooting guard at 33%, followed by Devin Booker, SGA, who was also named in the point guard, Steph Curry, who was also named in the point guard, Luka Doncic, who was also named in the point guard. And then in the honorable mention, also receiving votes category, that's where we find 2 Boston Celtics. So Jaylen Brown and Derek White getting a little bit of love here, Greg, in the best shooting guard in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, SGA, I personally think of him more as a shooting guard, even though he does run most of the offense for OKC. But I think this is probably the most interesting category if you classify SGA as a shooting guard, because I think Booker, Edwards, SGA, and Jalen, although Jalen plays the small forward and plays a forward position for the Celtics,
so
I think
ambiguous,
naturally he's probably more of a shooting guard. So I would probably say those 4 plus Jamal Murray are the guys that I kind of classify as like the 5 best shooting guards in the league. So I think that's an ever evolving conversation this year. And it'll just be fun to see when the Celtics go up against an Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, SGA, how Jalen takes those matchups, because I think he's going to look at those guys as the other guys he's competing with for the supremacy in this category. Specifically, I'm super pumped to see when the Celtics play the Thunder, because we didn't look great against the Thunder last year. And I want to see who takes the matchup. I don't think Holiday had a good time guarding SGA last year. I think Derek White's probably just a little too small. So I think it's going to come down to Tatum or Brown who's covering him. And I hope it's Jalen, and I hope it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Tatum was the guy that finally had success that game in OKC when the Celtics tried to make that comeback. Porzingis' big toe was on the line. Tatum was the guy that was guarding SGA the last 5 minutes of that game, maybe 4, 5, 6 minutes.
Looked
of that
really
game.
good.
and looked really good doing it, right? Yeah. So, but to the shooting guard question, yeah, I don't know. I guess I probably consider SGA, Steph, and Luka all point guards more than I do shooting guards. It's all, your own style, flavor, whatever. But like the way that you kind of ranked it, yeah, Ant, Book, and Jaylen for me are probably, and even Jaylen you could consider a small forward because I kind of consider Tatum a power forward, so that changes it all. But I think Ant, Book, and Jaylen are kind of who I look at that I'm kind of like, okay, I think you guys are right there. Everyone wants to anoint Ant at the top of that list, and I really think, Devin Booker and Jaylen Brown are just as good, if not better, than Anthony Edwards at this point. Future-wise, I can see the vision of Anthony Edwards being at the top of that class, but I think right now it's a really interesting, competition between the three. And to your point, when they all play each other, it's just going to add a little bit more juice to those matchups. So that will be fun. Going to the small forward here, this is where Jason Tatum is clocking in and reporting for duty. Back-to-back number ones for Jason Tatum in this category. Each time, 47%. So very consistent for Jason Tatum here as the number one spot for small forward here in the NBA. Tied second, Luka Doncic, now his third category that he's in the top 5 for, followed by Kevin Durant and LeBron. And then Jaylen also getting some love here at number 5 in this category. But I will say, Greg, it's nice to see Jason Tatum getting the respect. It's and some of this is a little bit semantic of just like, oh, everyone more so agrees he's mostly a small forward, even though he does make it, even though he is, to my mind, kind of more of a power forward, gets a shout out in the honorable mention section of the power forwards section of the NBA here. But it is good to see Jason Tatum get his respect back-to-back years.
Yeah, Tatum's, I think after last season, we were all expecting it to be the summer of Jason Tatum, and it just wasn't. So I think this shows that the GMs aren't overreacting to what happened in the Olympics.
Yeah, 100%. And then we get to power forward and center. I think these ones are pretty easy for now. Giannis, number 1, 77%. It's Giannis is one of the easier players to, I think, define if you're doing traditional positions, what you think it is. And of course, you can play small ball 5, but next to Brook Lopez, he's the power forward. He's the best power forward in the NBA. I think that's pretty simple, pretty easy right there. And then best center in the NBA, Nikola Jokic, 87%. As I said, for now, Joel Embiid getting 10% of the vote, and then Wemby clocking in at 3%. That one I expect to tick up considerably going into next year. But for now, Giannis at power forward, Jokic at center. I think it'd be pretty hard to debate either one of those at this point. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, Giannis, he's unfortunately been injured the last 2 postseasons. So
really bad timing on his injuries, right? Like it's just like he's been healthy, and then it's just right at the beginning of the postseason 2 years ago, and then against us with what, like 2-3 weeks left in the season is when he had his injury, and then just missed the entire postseason.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the Bucks, I think their time has passed them with Middleton's health and all that. So Giannis still obviously is an amazing player. And then Jokic, someone's going to have to come and take that crown from him because he's not giving it up. He's the best center in the league, no question. I think, Embiid being second makes sense. And then everybody wants Wemby to become the best player in the league soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all coming. I'm skipping over a few of these sections here. Just one note I have on the rookies and international section that I thought was funny is they did ask which rookie was the biggest steal at where he was selected in the draft. And we talked about this draft was kind of all over the place, not really a super strong draft. No one really had a feel for it. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that tied for the steal of the draft at 10%. So yeah, I think everyone has no idea what to really expect out of this particular draft. So we'll see. But Baylor Shireman did get a little bit of love here in the also receiving votes, but there's 50 names here. So I think everyone just kind of got a little bit of love in that section as well. Let's go down to the defense. I think defense and coaching are the last 2 spots that I really want to kind of get into here a little bit. Who's the best defensive player in the NBA? We've been talking a lot about Wemby. Wemby's already getting his respect and love here at 40%. Drew Holiday coming in tied second with Bam Adebayo and the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. So Drew Holiday still looked at as among the top defenders in the league. And you're going to see his name here in a bunch of spots, including he was named the number 1 best perimeter defender in the NBA, much like Jason Tatum at the small forward position, back to back. Did drop slightly, was 50% of the vote last year, down to 43%, followed by your boy, Alex Caruso. Herb Jones, and then Lou Dort in here as well. Derek White getting some love in the honorable mentions. But good to see, Greg, that Drew Holiday is, and it's not just reputation. It's, I think, to your point of the Olympics not affecting the view of Jason Tatum, I think Drew Holiday is kind of the opposite effect, where he obviously had a great season, but I think the importance of what he shows, even in an Olympic setting, continues to help build his reputation. He gets that love in these type of surveys.
Yeah, and anytime you hear
Deservedly so.
anytime you hear players talk about best perimeter defenders, Drew Holiday is always the guy they mention. He's the greatest.
Yep. And keep going down here. Interior defender, Wemby, getting that love. Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis right there as well. Versatile defender. I think this is an interesting question because there's so many names that are listed here. Giannis ends up taking this home, but there's a lot of names that got some love, including Drew Holiday, who ended up tied 5th at 7%. In front of him was Bam Adebayo, Wemby, and OG.
What's your answer to that question? Who's the most versatile defender?
I mean, honestly, you know what I was surprised about? It's a really tough question to answer, but we just watched Jason Tatum guard 1 through 5 in the NBA Finals, and his name's nowhere on this list. So I'm a little surprised that Tatum or Jaylen wouldn't at least get some consideration. I don't know that I have a definitive answer, but like I said, we just saw Tatum guard 1 through 5, so that seems pretty versatile to me.
Yeah, I was surprised he wasn't on this list at all, but I think Giannis is an interesting choice at number 1 just because he doesn't really do anything other than guard the rim.
Right.
So that's weird to me, but I would say Bam would probably be my answer. I think Bam's the most versatile defender in the league right now. Just because his ability to switch 1 through 5, and he's not as good at guarding ones as Tatum is, but he's a lot better at guarding bigs than Tatum is. So I think that's
like the top tier bigs, right? Like, because like when for Tatum, he's guarding Lively and Gafford. It's not going to be the same if he's guarding, some of the top tier bigs that Bam's like, I'll take that matchup. I'll take Jokic,
Bam can
and then I'll switch out onto Jamal Murray. Like that's not going to be Tatum's bag.
Yeah, and Tatum's a better screen navigator than Bam is, but Bam is locked down. Like if you just want to dribble the ball in front of Bam, you're not going to have much luck.
Yeah, I mean, I think any defensive answer, you can usually say Bam Adebayo. It's going to be a pretty good answer for it. So, yeah, I mean, Evan Mobley's another guy that I'm just looking at some of the names listed here. That's another guy that I think is kind of an interesting answer for this. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names on this list for most versatile defender because, like you said, Giannis, I think, is not the right answer here because I don't think versatile. I think maybe impactful defender, that might be Giannis, but versatile, I'm with you. I don't think that necessarily should fall to Giannis. And then who's the best defensive team in the NBA with 57% of the vote? Your Boston Celtics take home the number 1 spot, followed by Minnesota and OKC. Once again, back-to-back titles for the Celtics in the best defensive team in the NBA category. Actually up. Last year it was 47%. This year up to 57%. Last thing in the survey I want to touch on here, Greg, is just the coaching. Something that was really interesting. So I'm going to read a couple categories and then I'll go back to who was voted the best coach in the NBA. So which head coach is the best manager motivator of people? Coming in tied for 3rd in this category, your Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics at 10%, tied with Greg Popovich and Doc Rivers, just behind Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra. Which coach runs the best offense? Number 1 was Rick Carlisle by a good margin, 47%. We saw the Indiana offense pretty efficient. Gave us all our money in a sweep in the conference finals. Number 2, Joe Mazzulla, 17%. Keep that in mind here. And then which head coach has the best defensive schemes? Eric Spoelstra, again, takes home the number 1 spot. Tied 2nd was Chris Finch, Tom Thibodeau. And then in 4th was Joe Mazzulla at 17%. So with that in mind, Joe Mazzulla being in the top 4 of all 3 of those categories, let's see who is the best head coach in the NBA and what that voting looked like. Number 1, Eric Spoelstra, 69%. Hard to disagree. Eric Spoelstra, great coach. Talk about it all the time. Number 2, Mark Dagnall, Oklahoma City, 17%. Number 3, Steve Kerr at 7%. And then also receiving votes is Mike Budenholzer,
who wasn't in the league last year.
Right. And I don't understand that one at all. Chris Finch from Minnesota. Those are the 5 coaches that receive votes. Little weird to see Mazzulla get so much love in probably the 3 main categories that make up what make you a good coach and get 0 love for best head coach. I'm not saying he should be number one, but a little weird to be in the top 3 of all of manager motivator, offensive schemes, defensive schemes, but then you don't get any votes for best head coach in the NBA and these other guys. I don't know. That doesn't seem to quite track.
Yeah, you would. I mean, maybe somebody just like, I don't know. Like, why would you pick Budenholzer as the
Right.
best
That makes
head coach?
that's what I'm saying.
That one doesn't make any sense. I mean, like most of the votes, obviously, or 69% went to Spo. So when you look at like the breakdown of the other categories, it's not like
it's one-off votes or
yeah.
whatever.
You know, Spo's at 37% for best manager, right? But when you just think overall best head coach, if all those votes are going to Spo, then you can see why it might end up going away from Mazzulla there. But Mazzulla is definitely at the very least a top 10 coach. He's probably a top 5 coach in the league. And it just speaks to how far everybody has come with the reputation of Joe Mazzulla after being thrust into an impossible situation his first year, bouncing back year 2 with all the lessons he's learned. And he looks like he's really coming into his own as a coach, and all the players love him. So it seems like the city is going to really start embracing Joe Mazzulla. Obviously, he's immortalized now that he won a championship, but one thing I talked about, Will, with you on a previous pod with Towns was just like I asked for him just to be authentic, and I think New York fans would love him. I think Celtics fans are starting to realize that the eccentricity of Joe Mazzulla is actually his authentic self, and then we appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. Year 2, we got an actual Joe. We got rid of Robot Joe. Robot Joe was just year 1 trying to figure it out. All good. We've got the real Joe Mazzulla. Whatever that is, it's a whole bag of eccentricity, like you said, but it's real, it's authentic, and I think it's coming through. And people in Boston are all in on Joe Mazzulla right now. Last thing here, just best assistant coach in the NBA. Shout out to Sam Cassell, tied for first here with Mika Nori, the assistant coach for the Timberwolves that filled in during the postseason. Feels like this might eventually finally be the year, Greg, that Sam Cassell gets a look at an NBA head coaching job. But that's the NBA GM survey. Just a fun thing to kind of look at in the offseason. I like when it comes up every year, just kind of take a look year over year, see what's changed, see what people's thoughts are. A lot of love for the Celtics in that, so that is always nice to see. Last thing we want to talk about here, Greg, before we wrap this up and get out of here. You hinted at it, Jaylen Brown, the celebrity. Like we've talked about it a couple times about Jaylen Brown getting a bump. You know, Jaylen Brown didn't make Team USA, but damn, has he had one hell of a summer. Got a new shoe brand out, got his own shoe brand out. That's gonna be hitting the markets here. You can go check out that website now. 741. Is there
741 performance.com.
Yeah, 741 Performance. Go check those out. Those shoes are dropping here soon. Greg's already got his pair in his cart, ready to go, coming to the house soon. We'll get a review from him once those are in. But over the last week, appeared on the hit YouTube show, which maybe it's on TV. Maybe everything's on TV and YouTube these days. Hot Ones, which was an interesting episode. I thought that show, I enjoyed that show. It's funny. That show I mostly consume in clips. I've watched the full show maybe twice, and the second time was just for Jaylen Brown here recently. But a fun appearance from
Sweeney.
No, I watched the Conan one a couple years ago. Sydney Sweeney, this is a pretty good one. Anything she's on, usually get me a tune into. I'll say that. But horniness aside, Jaylen Brown, excellent appearance on Hot Ones, and then on the cover of Time magazine. So big weekend for Jaylen Brown, the celebrity. Greg, I know you wanted to put this in here in the rundown and had some thoughts on it. So floor is yours, man. This is your guy right here who's having a big time glow up over the last several months.
Well, we asked the question 5 or 6 episodes ago. The title of that episode was, "Are we entering the Jaylen Brown era?" Right. And Jason Tatum has been the star in the face of the franchise for the Boston Celtics since he came in as a rookie. He's very marketable, very handsome guy. Not to say Jaylen's not a handsome guy, but like Tatum just kind of has more of like an all-American look to him than Jaylen does. And Jaylen is a little bit more like off the beaten path with like his thought processes on things. And he's not as worried about his like public facing persona. I guess he's kind of just someone that does his own thing, marches to the beat of his own drum, all those cliches that you want to say about Jaylen Brown. But I do think there's like this really interesting tide changing with Jaylen Brown, where like Tatum is so like plain and like kind of vanilla, that with Jaylen coming into it as this, like, to use the word eccentric again, he's like a little bit more eccentric in a world that feels crazier by the day. He seems like the guy who might end up being the bigger star between the two of them if he continues down this path where he's making more more of an effort to do public appearances like Hot Ones. Hot Ones is a
Yeah.
huge show. Tatum last year or 2 years ago, he had the Kevin Hart interview, which was great. I think people got to see like another side of Jason Tatum there. Tatum obviously released his book with Juice, but he's this like Tatum's
He's coming
this,
out in the Netflix
really
documentary
friendly-
that's releasing here soon.
yeah, he's this like family friendly guy. He's on the Tonight Show or whatever, and he has his own market. But I
It's
think
manicured,
Jaylen,
right? He's more
Yeah.
manicured, whereas Jalen's just kind of out there to like
right, but Jaylen is now like finding what his market is, and there's no reason why that market can't be as big as Jason Tatum's market, and they can each have their own share of a pie on completely different plates, which I think is really cool to see Jaylen Brown becoming this celebrity. He was so charming on Hot Ones, like the "Did we become best friends?" line. For all the Step Brothers fans out there, like that was great to see him drop something like that, and then. The cool thing about Jaylen is he looks like he's from the future. He's like this very cyberpunk.
He's very much
fashionista.
playing this up with like the constantly. I don't think he had it on for hot videos. He's been wearing that necklace all
Right. He's
all
got the
summer.
weird
The
sunglasses. Like if
shades
you or
on.
I
Yeah,
tried to wear those sunglasses, people would be like,
it
dude,
was
like,
not
what are you,
wicked.
fucking Keanu Reeves? Like, get the fuck out of here.
We should
But
do
with
that
Jaylen
one
Brown,
episode where we just show up and we don't address it. We don't say anything, but and only the YouTube fans that are watching know that we have the Jaylen Brown sunglasses on the entire time, and just see what
Right.
happens. See if anything happens to it. But yeah, those sunglasses did definitely stand out. Something I was wondering, and I wonder this with every Hot Ones episode, as someone that you've once called the chicken wing king. I love my chicken wings. Do you think they eat the whole wing? Because there's that
No, they don't.
point
They
where
take bites.
Jalen's yeah, which is bullshit, right? Like eat the whole fucking wing. Like that's I don't know.
Okay.
That's a
All
small
right.
gripe for a show that I don't really have to. I don't really care one way or the other. But you should eat the whole wing. Like, and I thought about it because Jaylen, you know how when the host Sean Emmons is like, when Jalen's asking about this water, this milk, like like he turned it into like his competitive mindset when he's
Right.
like, can I drink the water? Can I drink? He's like, do contestants do that? And she was like, oh, you're in like competitive game mode. Like he's like, yeah, it's there for you, but it's like you're treating this like, how do I win against these other Hot Ones contestants?
Right.
And in my mind, I'm like, you know how you win? You eat the whole fucking chicken wing. That's the point of a chicken wing. Eat the whole thing. I don't know.
I like this
That's
take,
always
man.
bothered me about that show, man. You gotta eat the whole chicken wing to consider really beating the wings of death. I think you should have to eat the entire chicken wing.
I love Sean Evans, though, man. I think he's such a good interviewer. Like the way that he does such great research on all the guests.
His
Like
research is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, the Sydney Sweeney episode, he like brought up some stuff from like her middle school, like some plays that she was in, and she was like, "What? Like, how the hell did you know that I did that?" And I think it's really cool how he's able to, it's such a unique format for a show. I would love to figure out a way for us to like bring in a little bit more of a gimmick like that, but like not have it be a gimmick, like actually have it be like the foundation of something. I think it's really cool, great show. And then Jaylen on Time Magazine, like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then if you read that article, I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the whole thing. It just shows
I have
this
not,
other.
but just real quick, just for the audience. So he was on the cover for 100 Next, which is like their next list. It's the 100 emerging leaders from across the world who are shaping the future. So that's why Jalen's on there. Like from your point, from what you're saying about Jaylen finding his lane, his voice, who he is, and creating his own celebrity that's a different and distinct celebrity from Jason Tatum, where once again you're not going to create conflict of who's stealing the spotlight. They have two different spotlights that they're going for here. And so Jaylen being in that emerging leaders from across the world shaping the future. I have not had a chance to read the article, but if you have some insights, I'd love to hear it. So that way I can kind of know what to look for going into
It's just like all the stuff that I've been saying about Jaylen Brown and why I love him as a person. He's so community oriented. They go into a lot of his like idea to bring wealth to like Black Wall Street to Boston, and like not only just Boston but around the country. It's something that he wants to be able to do. I think it's the Bridges program that he does with MIT. I think it's called the Bridges program.
Yeah, is that like the inner city STEM program? I think.
Yeah,
that,
he does all these things for the community that are so important, especially in a city like Boston, and he's providing all these opportunities for all these kids that are underserved and underserved communities. And it's just such an important part of being part of the city of Boston. The fabric of the city is that you're making an effort to be a part of the community, and he's using his influence to really, it actually create change in the city and in people's lives. And I think it's just so cool because the Time magazine does that feature does a great job showing like all of the stuff he's doing behind the scenes that he hasn't really gotten like a ton of national publicity for. Like there's local coverage of it and whatnot, but I don't think the average NBA fan realizes what Jaylen Brown has been doing over the past 5 years. You know what I mean? So I think the Time magazine shows this one side of him, and then you get a whole nother audience with the Hot Ones interview where all the people that tune into that show now see he's got this like really smooth personality. He's just like a cool guy. And then he's also this cool guy that's super cerebral. And plus coming off of the MVPs entering into his prime, I think Jaylen Brown is going to have he's going to take over the next 5 years in a whole way that I don't think a lot of people saw coming.
Yeah. And like Time and Hot Ones are so commercial to people that maybe don't really know much. And maybe their introduction might've been him in the finals, right? That might've been like, I only tuned into the finals. And they're like, oh, this guy, Jaylen, like he won the NBA Finals MVP. And now he's on Hot Ones right after, Sydney Sweeney and Pedro Pascal. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's in this like new zeitgeist of culture. And then you're going shopping at the grocery store and you're like, oh, now here he is again. He was just on my Twitter for, eating chicken wings. And now he's here while I'm getting milk, on the cover of Time magazine. It's like, man, I got to look into this guy more. And then to your point, that eventually brings in that awareness of all the other stuff that we've known in the community and kind of more behind the scenes, unless you're really locked into really probably the Celtics and specifically what he's doing in the community, both in Boston and for the Black community, of knowing those endeavors. Now those start to take light and create this just completely different picture within culture of who Jaylen Brown is and where he's going. So really cool stuff from Jaylen Brown. Excited to see where he's going and where he takes that. And, on the court, we talked about too. It's back for another year. The Celtics, they're back, baby. We're back. We're in the flex. We're in the middle of everything here. So we'll have another episode for you guys. I don't know if it'll be before or after the upcoming preseason games, but we'll have some more content for you guys. We're locking and loading here. October 22nd. That's when everything kicks off for real. Celtics, Knicks, that'll be open tonight. So we've got some more previews coming for you guys. Some team specific ones we'll bring in, some outsiders here to give you guys a look into and around the NBA. So stay tuned, stay locked in, subscribe, follow us, all that good shit. We appreciate you all. Greg, any final thoughts here before I send us out to some Black Sheep Optimists?
Just quick shout to my favorite athlete in the world, Alex Poatan Pereira, your boy from Brazil in the UFC. Third title defense at light heavyweight in 7 months. Pretty much unprecedented what he's doing. Had a hell of a matchup this weekend against Khalil Roundtree Jr. Took him out in the 4th round. If you don't watch a UFC, next time Alex Pereira fights, tune in for that. I think he's the most electrifying combat sports athlete on planet Earth right now. And I just want to give a quick shout because I'm a huge UFC fan. He had a hell of a performance this weekend. Shout out to Alex Poatan Pereira.
Shout out to my Brazilian brother. That's going to do it here for this episode of Green with Envy. As always, appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you soon. Peace.
Missed free throw. Ford for the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You coming to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor. I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating the river. I call to see if you open. I hope you deliver. Every time you're getting close, I still be sick with the shivers. But there's nothing like that first time. I still remember the first time I saw you. You were looking so fine, chill like lo-fi, watch you go by. It was all I could do to say hi. I still remember the first time I saw you.